Ba-da-dee-da-dim, ba-dee-dum, ba-dee-da-dum, be-da-dee-da-dim, ba-dee-dum, ba-dee-da-dum. This piece is actually taking the narrative history of San Juan and putting it to music. Since this is our hometown, it seemed like a very natural thing to do to San Juan, especially since this is, quote, the city of history. And there's such a legacy of stories and centuries of history going all the way back to the Indians that lived here, the native Californians, the Mutsun, Naloni tribe, that essentially inspired the Spanish to establish a mission here. There were enough Indians around to set up a mission. And so we have taken those memories as they have existed through survivors, through interviews that have been conducted over the last couple of centuries, testimonials, letters that have been written. And Daniel set these to music, basically. He created a number of songs that serve as the skeletal structure of Oratorio Canción de San Juan. But it needed the narratives, it needed the spoken word. So we began to tap into the record as it exists in published and unpublished materials. Tim and Francis Tompkins took the lead in terms of researching and editing and eventually sculpting the narratives. And we met in communal fashion to discuss how these narratives would work in conjunction with the music, interweaving both the songs and the lyrics with the narratives and the pieces of the narrative. So essentially it's been a collaborative effort, bringing together the existing memories of the pioneers of San Juan Bautista into a cohesive whole that has become then a dramatic piece set to music. It's not a musical in the standard American theater sense, but it's most definitely a musical in the historical sense. So this is an evocation of San Juan history through the sounds and memories of the last couple of centuries.
The thing about this project is, like all oratorios, is the hard thing is really selecting which stories you're going to tell. And so we had to be really selective about which stories would represent the different time periods that would capture the growth and the history of San Juan Bautista. And once that was done, I spent all that time absorbing and reading a tremendous amount of history, and it was time to really decipher which of the periods we were going to lock into and which stories would represent the history more than anything else. And from that really drove the writing period, the composing period of writing the songs that fit the period. And so each period represented a different time period, so it was a real challenge to try and keep the diversity within the soundtrack and the orchestrations of the piece. So we were not only period, but it also represented the passing of time. And so as we go from the early 1600s into the 1906 earthquake, you hear a musical change in the orchestration of music. And so I took that into account in terms of the kind of songs that I wanted to write about.
Luis comes over and we figured out we're going to have 4 ghosts of these 4 people. And the first was Ascension, who was a Native American, last Mutsun speaker. And then Father Cuesta, who was a Spanish period, and then Encarnacion Ortega, who was a Mexican period, and then Mark Reagan as the American. So we had all those 4, all ghosts, they're all ghosts. They come back later on, of course they couldn't talk about what happened later because they're dead, but if you're a ghost you can do anything you want. So I had 4 ghosts to work with.
Ba-da-dee-da-dim, ba-da-dee-da-dim, ba-da-dum, ba-dee-da-dum.